Welcome back to Prep Station Biology. And in this episode, we'll be looking at ecology of populations. Ecology of populations. Okay, now, what is a community? It is a group of organisms from different species. Why population is a group of organisms from the same species? I believe you should know that by now. Then population density is the average number of individuals in the population per unit area or volume. For example, a population of 100 insects that live in an area of 100 square meter has a density of 1 insect per square meter. So if you have, take for instance, you have 1,000 people, right, living in a place that is 1 kilometer square. You get it now? That's 1 kilometer square. So you should be able to calculate the population density from there. So that would be, since we have 100 square meter to 100 insect, right? And at the end of the day, it was this. So that makes it very simple. Now, there are factors that may cause the population density in a given area to either increase. Remember, when the population density is going up, it leads to what we call overcrowding. So there are factors that will cause the population density to increase or decrease. And these factors include predation and parasitism, intraspecific competition, interspecific competition, emigration, immigration, and mortality. Predation and parasitism, interspecific competition, intraspecific competition, emigration, immigration, and mortality. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this now. Factors that cause overcrowding and effects of overcrowding. Already you know the meaning of overcrowding, right? When the space is not enough, not just space. When the available resources is not just enough for the people or for the number of organisms living there, it becomes a problem. And you know that overcrowding will always cause competition because people will begin to compete for space. Organisms will begin to compete for space. They'll be competing for food. They'll be competing for mate also. Okay. Now, overcrowding occurs when the population density exceeds the carrying capacity. Now, please stay with me. Now, what do I mean by carrying capacity? The carrying capacity is the ability of that environment. It is what that environment can carry. You get now? Take for instance, in a class now, a room that is meant to accommodate only 20 students. Then they now bring like 50 students to it. Obviously, that room has exceeded its carrying capacity. Then there will be a kind of competition between the students because they'll be competing for seats. They'll compete for space. They'll compete for air, oxygen. You get now? Okay, the same thing happened too, even in a community of living organisms. Once the carrying capacity is exceeded, it triggers so many things that are not good. Okay, now, the available resources such as nutrients, water, space, light, etc. become inadequate to support the strength of the population. So overcrowding can be caused by natality. What is natality? Birth. When people keep giving birth, organisms that keep producing. Now, immigration, like they are coming in, like immigration, they're coming in. Their survival rate, if the survival rate too is very high, it will lead to overcrowding. Then what are the effects of overcrowding? We have food, water, and oxygen shortage. Of course, there won't be enough food. There won't be enough water. There won't be enough oxygen. You get now? Then we have shortage of light for photosynthetic population. That means in a population of plants that are actively carrying out photosynthesis, they need what? They need light. So they begin to compete for it. Since they have already, the space has already exceeded its carrying capacity, then there will be a kind of competition. Then we have increased spread of diseases within the population. Of course, you know that when there's overcrowding in a place, then there will be what? A faster rate at which the diseases will be spreading because they'll be too close to each other. The ones that are very communicable will begin to spread. The airborne will start spreading too. Then we have inadequate space for breeding and construction of shelters. Like reproduction rather, will be will be impeded, will be affected because they do not have enough space. For example, nest and hiding from predators. Remember that if they cannot hide from predators, predators can come and feed on them. That would reduce their population. Then we also have competition for inadequate resources like space, food, and mate. Like space, food, and mate. Then predation increases as the number of prey increases. What do I mean by that? Remember that the prey, those are the big guys now feeding on the small guys. The small guys are the predators. So it would increase that to the big. Their number will keep increasing. Their number will keep increasing because of overcrowding. I'm going to explain that. Remember, they are always stronger than the predators. The prey, most of the time, are always stronger than the predators. So they would be increasing and the number of the predator will be reducing. Now there's a problem with that. Yes, they may be feeding on the predators now, but the time is coming when the population of the predator would have gone completely out. So the prey now become a problem. They may not have anything to fall back to. Okay, now let's move on. How to avoid overcrowding? Migration, like you don't sit in one place, you move out, you travel to this place, you don't sit at a place. Then we have dispersal of seed and fruit. Like when a plant is producing now, of course you know that we have like 3 different mechanisms for seed dispersal, right? So you disperse so that the seed now gets to a new place, it sprouts and it begins to grow there. Then we have territorial behavior. Try to claim your territory. This is not about you being like sending others away from you, but protect your territory. I think we have seen this in lizard. We have seen it in chicken too. When they fight other lizard coming into their space. Okay, they are trying to avoid overcrowding. You can see that those guys are also smart. Very, very smart. Then, adaptations for survival. In a place that is overcrowded, how do you survive? How do you survive? Number 1 is competition. You have to compete. You have to compete. Compete for space, compete for water, compete for territory. You have to be very strong. Remember at the beginning, remember in one of the episodes rather, I told you about, I think it was Charles Darwin, when we were talking about theories of evolution, that talked about survival of the fittest. It was talking about organisms have to struggle to stay alive, to exist. They have to struggle. Yes, competition too. You have to compete for food. You have to compete for water. You have to compete to keep your space. Otherwise, it will become overcrowded. Why do you think people build house and they erect a fence around it? Because it is not just for security reasons. Or it is also for maybe because they're trying to prevent people from just coming in anyhow. Now, for instance, if flowering plants are planted too close together, such that they compete for nutrients, the densely packed plant will be weak and will produce few flower, if at all. Why? Because it will not have enough resources. The resources that would have been for that plant alone would have been shared with other plants. And at the end of the day, none of them will get enough. Okay. Then, competition can be of 2 types. Please share with me. It can either be interspecific or intraspecific. Let's break it down. If you hear inter, from the word international. If you hear specific, from the word species. Are you getting that now? So interspecific means a kind of competition that is existing between species that are not the same thing. So you are competing like a dog now, competing for something with a goat. That is interspecific. Are you getting my point now? For example, hyena and lion, both of them are chasing the same prey. That is interspecific. Then the next one is intraspecific. Intra means within, specific species. So a competition that exists between organisms of the same species. Now, this can bring about adaptation within the population. For example, 2 mango trees competing for space and sunlight. That is an example of intraspecific competition because the 2 mangoes are of the same species. And don't forget what I told you, that it brings about adaptation within the population. they are able to adapt. Okay, now let's look at mortality rate. Mortality is the number of deaths in a population over a given time. It is typically expressed in units of death per 1,000 individuals per year. Then we have territorial behavior, the process by which an animal or group of animals protect its territory from intruders, right, for by other species. Now, it may be marked by sound such as bird song, or scent such as pheromones secreted by the skin glands of many mammals. All of these are different ways by which they try to survive. They try to survive to keep themselves alive. We have it in our own community now, where a country will place a kind of law now or regulation so that it prevents some set of people from coming in. Why do we need to have to go and apply for visa before you travel out? They are trying to manage their population. They are trying to keep their community sane. They are trying to avoid overcrowding. Otherwise, people would have been going in and coming anyhow. Okay, thank you. Now, the next one is competition and succession. Competition and succession. So competition brings about succession. Please stay with me. It brings about succession. Now, succession is the gradual replacement of an existing plant and animal species in a habitat by a colonizer until a stable or climax community is achieved. I'm going to take time to explain this. I said succession is a gradual replacement of an existing plant or animal species in a habitat. Take for instance, in a place where you have plants, you have animals there, but it can be succeeded by another group of plants or another group of animals now until it gets to a point where the place becomes self-sustaining, like it becomes stable, or it becomes a climax community. Now, competition enables new entrants to the habitat, which displaces the existing species over a period of time. Already you know that if competition is coming, it means that the strongest will win and the strongest will stay. And pay attention. When you talk about competition, how do you know it? You know it by their ability to reproduce, ability to produce more offspring. That is one good thing that you can use to know the strongest. Okay, now let's look at this. Ecological succession. This is the gradual changes in the species of organism in a given habitat over time. Like it keeps changing, Now, take for instance, your compound now, or let's say your backyard. You guys used to play ball there. You have a place where you play ball. But now, because you guys have gone to school, after like 6 months, you're coming back. Now you can see small grasses growing on it. What happened? That is what? Succession. Are you getting that? Succession. And if you leave it, let's say you leave it for another 1 year, you will discover that the type of plant that you have there now will not be the same type of plant that you will see there after 1 year. It shows that the first one would have been succeeded by another species, another type of plant or animal. Are you getting it now? So I said these communities replace one another until a climax community, like a matured forest, is achieved, or until a disturbance like a fire occurs. And there are two types of ecological succession. We have the primary succession and the secondary succession. I'm going to take my time to explain that. What is primary succession? It happens when a new patch of land is created or exposed for the first time. Pay attention. It is new. It has never been colonized by any plant before. That is why it is called primary. Are you getting me? Now let's look at it. For example, when lava cools and creates new rocks, or when a glacier retreats and exposes rocks without any soil. During primary succession, organisms must start from scratch because there was nothing there before. So they have to build it. They are building a forest for themselves, by themselves. Okay, now first, lichens might attach themselves to rocks, and a few small plants able to live without soil might appear. These are known as pioneer species. Cool down. This might come out in your exam Question number 44. So you need to know it. When you hear pioneer species, it's talking about the first species that will colonize a place. The first species of living organism that will colonize a place during succession. Okay, now let's look at this picture. Pioneer species, what do we have there? We have bare rock, we have lichens, bare rock, we have bare rocks, lichens, right? Bare rocks, lichens, we have small annual plants and lichens. That means after the bare rock, what do you have? You have the lichen. After the lichen, we have small animal plants and lichens. Then after that, you have grasses and perennials. Then you have grasses, shrubs, and shade-intolerant trees such as pines. Then what do you have? You have shade-tolerant trees such as oak and hickory. You get now? So this, what you have here, is known as a climax community. But remember that it started from where? From these pioneer species. Those are the first set of living organisms there. Okay, so let's move on. So the next one is secondary succession. Of course, you would agree with me that if primary succession is starting from scratch, secondary succession will not. If primary succession is starting from a place that had no plant before, secondary succession will start from a place that used to have plants, but it was disturbed. Take, for instance, you have a farmland that got burnt. That means there's a disturbance. You used to have a farmland, but you went and cut down all the trees there. It was disturbed. Definitely they will come back again. So you disturbed their community, but they are now coming back to life. That is secondary succession. And it happens when a climax community or intermediate community is impacted by disturbance. You know what I mean by disturbance. I know the different kind of disturbance that can disturb a community of plants or animal. Now, so it's going to restart the cycle of succession, but not back to the beginning. Soil and nutrients are still present. For example, after a forest fire that kills all the mature plants on a particular landscape, grasses might grow, followed by shrubs and a variety of tree species until eventually the community that existed before the fire is present again. That's secondary succession. Okay, now look at this. Unlike the first one that we saw earlier, these guys here are not starting from the scratch. Yes, they are not starting from the scratch. Let's say this was when the fire was burning it. But look at it now. Everything has gone, but not completely. See it here. Then look at what we have here. Grasses and perennials. We have grasses, shrubs, pines, oak, young oak. Then we have mature oak. So this, what we have here, is a climax community. If you come across question from this topic, you should be able to dust it because it is just like a giveaway. Very simple. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so what are the factors affecting population size? What are the factors that affect the size of the population? These factors can be divided into just two. We have the biotic factors and the abiotic factors. Those are factors that will affect the size of the population. Either it's going to be big or small. When you hear biotic factors, it means factors that are living. For example, plant, animals, bacteria, pests, predation, competition and reproductive ability. They are living. You get my point now. We have seen a community where something happened, the entire people in that community got wiped out. You get now. Those are biotic factors because it must have been carried out by a set of living organisms. Then we have abiotic factors. These are non-living components. Biotic living, abiotic non-living, such as water. In a time of drought, organisms will still die. Soil and atmosphere, rainfall, space, topography, temperature, light, pressure, etc. Those are examples of abiotic factors that can affect population size. Okay, we have been talking about population, ecological population. We've talked about succession and competition too. So now we quickly want to look at few questions from this topic. Now the first one says that which processes are involved in nutrient recycling in a functioning ecosystem? We have erosion, weathering, sedimentation. Option B, decomposition, evaporation and precipitation. Option D, Option C rather, nitrogen fixation, denitrification and ammonification. Then C, respiration, photosynthesis and transpiration. The correct answer here is B, decomposition, evaporation and precipitation. Okay, now what is the definition of population ecology? The study of interaction between organisms and their physical environment, the study of evolutionary processes and their effect on populations, the study of interactions between different populations in an ecosystem, the study of the distribution and abundance of individuals within a species, the study of interactions between different populations in an ecosystem. That would be our answer. Then let's look at this. Which of the following factors primarily affect the distribution of organisms in an ecosystem? Wind speed, soil pH, day length, temperature. The answer to this question is option C. Then which of the following is an example of an abiotic ecological factor? Abiotic, non-living. Obviously, this is competition, predation, symbiosis, temperature. The answer is temperature. Then the next one, which of the following statements best describes the role of competition in the process of adaptation? The role of competition. Now, there's something I told you about competition. Okay, let's see if it is here. Competition leads to selection of individuals with favorable traits for survival and reproduction. It ensures equal distribution of resources. No, they are competing, so there's nothing like equal distribution of resources. It leads to the development of new traits and adaptations in the population. Then it reduces the need for adaptation and individuals coexist peacefully. No, the correct answer is A. It leads to selection of individuals with favorable traits for survival and reproduction. Now, one of the things you must know about competition is that they have the ability to reproduce. Number 8, an adaptation for defense in animal is for defense. Croaking of a male toad, spines in porcupine fish, basking in lizard, the huddling together of penguin. The correct answer is the spines in porcupine. Okay. Number 9, succession that occurs on an abandoned farmland. It is abandoned. Is what? It's called secondary. It's not that it started from the scratch. No, it was abandoned. Then an adaptive feature of camel to the desert. Like, what is it that a camel has that helps it to survive in the desert? Ability to increase sweat production, ability to pass high amount of urine, ability to tolerate low degree of dehydration, ability to tolerate high degree of dehydration. That is our answer. Okay. So now, let's quickly look at one more topic, and that is growth. Growth refers to the increase in mass and size of a body or organs, like increase in mass and size of a body or organs. It typically occurs through the multiplication of cells and an increase in intracellular substance. It occurs all through the lifetime, but variably. Now, in humans, the rate of growth is faster until maturity. By the time the human gets to maturity, the rate of growth begins to gradually slows down until it eventually halts. Okay. Then conditions necessary for growth. Now, I'm talking about plants now. Plants need air, warmth, water, and nutrients to be healthy. If a plant doesn't have one of these requirements, it could affect its growth or even die. I'm sure you must have seen beans before, like raw beans now. Why is it not growing? Because all of these are not available. If you provide all of these, you will discover that the beans that was not growing will begin to grow. Now, a plant that is kept in a dark place will grow tall and spindly in search of light and then become weak, and later what? It will die. There are two types of germination. Now, we have the epigyl germination and we have the hypogyl germination. Now, please stay with me. The epigyl germination of a plant takes place above the ground, epil, above the ground, like it grows above the ground. And this is common in beans, tomato, and pumpkin. Why hypogale is the opposite of epigale? It goes below the ground, like below the ground. It is not above like epigale, it is below the ground. An example is found in wheat, rice, maize, pea, groundnut, yes, and mango. Okay, now let's move on. So look at this is an example. Okay, let's look at this picture. This is epigale going above. This is hypogale going below. Pay attention to the root system, please. Yes, this is epigale and this is hypogale, above and below. Okay, so let's look at some questions that we have from this topic. Number one of the functions of water in seed germination is, what does it do? What does water do in the germination of seed? It helps to dilute the embryo. It makes the soil wet and soft. It activates the enzymes. Now, the major thing here is that it activates the enzymes. There are growth enzymes. So they need a suitable environment for them to act. So once the environment is available, which of course is provided by the presence of water, then they begin to act and the seed will begin to grow. Then number two, now in an agricultural system, the biotic component consists of biotic, living, crop, pest, and beneficial insect. Pay attention, crop is living, pest is living, beneficial insect is living too. This one is living, temperature is non-living, humidity non-living, pest is living here, beneficial insect is living, but water non-living. This one, crop is living, water non-living, soil non-living too. So the answer for this is the option A. The following instrument is not used in measuring the biotic factors in an habitat. It's not used. Microscope cannot use to measure any abiotic factors. Thermometer is used to measure temperature. This is used too, and this is used. So the answer for this question is A. Then question number 6. Okay. Now, the biological association that contribute directly to succession in a community is dash. Biological association that contribute directly to succession. I told you earlier, the answer for that question is competition. Because they compete so that it's only the strongest that remains. The rest are wiped out. Then this one, which of the following is not a transmittable character in plant? Habit of growth, resistance to environmental factors, lifespan, then hemophilia. The correct answer is hemophilia because hemophilia has to do with blood. So plant does not have blood. So now based on this, I believe you can go and do very well in JAMB. Take your time. The videos are available. You can watch over as many times as possible. If you have questions, you can please drop your questions and we'll definitely get back to you. Thank you so much.